The envelope slipped from Pastor Michael's trembling hands and landed on the office floor with a sound that felt louder than thunder. He stared at it as though it might explode, a single check staring back at him, the numbers shimmering in gold ink. $10 million. His pulse hammered. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The letter clipped to the check was short, polite, formal, and terrifying. Your church has been chosen to receive this gift, but only if you agree to the condition written below. He read the next line once, then again. His throat went dry. He had to publicly renounce God. He dropped into his chair, the leather creaking under the weight of disbelief. He read the words a fourth time, hoping they would change. They didn't. His hand went instinctively to the cross pendant around his neck. $10 million. He whispered it out loud. The number felt unreal. For 10 years, Pastor Michael had carried a congregation that barely fit into a cracked-walled chapel on the edge of town. When it rained, buckets dotted the floor to catch the leaks. The choir sang over the hum of a failing speaker. The children studied scripture in a small corner partitioned by curtains and faith. He had buried more people than he had baptized. Every Sunday, he stood before faces lined with exhaustion and told them, faith isn't believing God can, it's knowing He will. And every Sunday night, when the lights dimmed and the last hymn faded, he sat alone in his office, staring at overdue bills and praying, Lord, I still believe you will, right? Now, that desperate prayer seemed answered, though wrapped in something that felt like the devil's handwriting. The door creaked open. Grace stepped in, her silhouette framed by the dim light from the hallway. She held 2 mugs of coffee, and that tired smile she saved only for him. Michael, she said softly, you're still here? He looked up, dazed. Grace, you need to see this. She frowned, crossing the room. He handed her the letter. She read silently, then gasped, the color draining from her face. Is this? She started. He cut in. I don't think it's fake. It came by courier. No name, no sender, just this. Her eyes darted back to the page. Renounce God, she whispered. Michael, this is blasphemy. He rubbed his forehead, exhausted. Grace, 10 million. Do you know what that could do? We could fix the roof, build a real school, feed families for years. At what cost? She snapped. Do you think God needs dirty money? He looked at her helplessly. I don't know what he needs anymore. People are starving. Kids can't pay school fees. Maybe this is how he provides, through strange means. She stepped closer, gripping his hand. Or maybe it's how he sees what you're really made of. Her words hit him like a hammer. He turned away, staring at the wall where a crack split the plaster like a lightning scar. That night, he barely slept. He replayed Grace's voice, the words circling like smoke. What are you really made of? By morning, the rumor had already escaped the walls of his office. Deacon Paul had seen the envelope and told one person. That one person told 2. By noon, the entire town knew. Half called it a blessing. The other half called it temptation. At the Wednesday service, whispers filled the air like buzzing flies. The offering basket returned half empty. In the front pew, a woman leaned toward her neighbor and murmured, If he takes it, he's not a man of God. Her neighbor replied, If he doesn't, he's a fool. That night, Michael stayed in the dark sanctuary long after everyone left. The candles were almost out, the air thick with silence. God, he whispered, I've never asked for luxury. I just wanted to help people. But maybe this is your test. Maybe you're asking how far I'd go for faith. The only reply was the candle flame trembling in the draft. The next morning his phone rang. "Pastor Vale," a calm voice asked. "Yes?" "You received our letter." Michael straightened. "Who are you?" "A donor," the voice said smoothly. "The money is real. The condition is real. You have 7 days to decide. After that, the offer goes elsewhere." "Why me?" "Because you preach about integrity," the caller replied. "We want to see if you practice it." The line went dead. Michael stood there, phone still in hand, feeling the blood drain from his face. By the 4th day, he couldn't eat. Reporters had gathered outside the church gates. One shouted, "Pastor, can faith really feed your people?" Another yelled, "Wouldn't $10 million prove God's favor?" He ignored them, but their words carved questions into his mind. On the 5th day, he called an emergency meeting with the church elders. 12 men and women sat around the table, faces drawn tight. "We can't accept this," Elder Morris said firmly. "It's a mockery of everything holy." "But think about it," Deacon Paul argued. "What if this is a job-like test? What if he's supposed to accept and then use it for good?" Michael slammed his hand on the table. "And what about my soul? What if I take it and lose everything that matters?" Silence filled the room. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. Grace waited outside the door, listening. When Michael stepped out, his shoulders were hunched, his eyes hollow. She took his hand. "You can't carry this alone," she whispered. He looked at her. "I'm not. I'm carrying everyone, the congregation, the hungry kids, the bills, the prayers." "Then let God carry you." He didn't answer. That night, he dreamed of standing in a golden cathedral so vast it swallowed sound. Thousands of people clapped and shouted his name. He looked up at the ceiling, gold, shining, endless. But when he turned to look at the crowd, every face was blank, featureless. And when he leaned over the pulpit, his own reflection in the glass had no eyes. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the echo of applause fading into his empty room. By the 7th day, he looked like a man aging in fast forward. Grace begged him to rest, but he couldn't. At dawn, the phone rang again. "Decision time, Pastor," the calm voice said. Michael swallowed hard. "If I take it, what happens next?" "You make a public announcement. You say the words. We'll handle the rest." "And if I refuse?" "The offer disappears. So does your chance to make a difference." He hung up. That Sunday, the church overflowed. Reporters filled the aisles. The envelope in his pocket felt heavier than a brick. As he stepped up to the pulpit, the lights from the cameras blinded him. He could hear people whispering his name, some praying, some waiting to see him fall. Grace sat in the front row, hands clenched, lips moving in silent prayer. Michael gripped the pulpit so hard his knuckles turned white. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice trembling but clear, "a test came to our church this week. A gift, $10 million. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "But it came with a price." Someone shouted, "What kind of price?" He looked down at the letter in his hands. "The price," he said slowly, "was God." Gasps. "They told me to deny the one who saved me, in exchange for wealth that could save others." He paused, his eyes wet. "I thought about it, because faith sounds easy when your stomach is full, but when hunger knocks, doubt opens the door." He turned to look at Grace. She nodded through tears. "I thought maybe this was how miracles work now, through men, not heaven. But then I realized something. No blessing from God demands that you betray him to receive it." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the envelope, and ripped it in half. The sound echoed like thunder in the sanctuary. "If this is what the world calls wealth," he said, voice breaking, "then I'd rather stay poor with peace." For a second, silence. Then Grace rose to her feet, clapping. Others followed. Within moments, the entire church was standing, clapping, crying, shouting, "Amen!" until the air itself seemed to tremble. Michael smiled faintly through tears. For the first time in a long time, he felt light. But peace never lasts forever. That night, he walked outside to find his car tires slashed. That night, when he found the tires slashed, Michael didn't even flinch. The wind howled through the churchyard, carrying pieces of paper and the faint sound of laughter from a distance. Someone had scrawled words across the hood of his car in red spray paint. "You could have fed hundreds." Grace came out behind him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "Who would do this?" He sighed, staring at the damage. "Someone who thinks I failed them." "Then they didn't hear your message," she said. "Maybe they heard exactly what they wanted," he murmured. "Money speaks louder than sermons." By morning, there was more. A letter nailed to the church door in bold, angry handwriting. "You could have changed lives. Instead, you chose pride." The reporters twisted his decision into headlines dripping with judgment. "Pastor rejects 10 million to protect ego." "False humility or faith? Small town church divides internet." The world that had cheered him for a day now mocked him for a week. By the end of that week, donations stopped completely. Attendance dropped by half. Bills piled up like fallen leaves. The same people who once clapped for him now crossed the street when he walked by. One even whispered, "Faith doesn't pay rent, Pastor." He tried to preach through it, about perseverance, about trusting God even in drought. But the sermons felt heavier, quieter. One evening, he found himself sitting in the dark sanctuary again, the same candle flickering weakly on the altar. The offering box was empty. The walls echoed. Grace came in quietly and sat beside him. "You did the right thing," she said. He didn't look up. "Then why does it feel so wrong?" "Because right doesn't always feel rewarding." He sighed. "Maybe I should have taken it, fixed everything, then asked for forgiveness after. Doesn't God forgive those who make mistakes for good reasons?" Grace turned toward him, eyes glistening. "You can't negotiate with God like a businessman. You can't sin for righteousness and call it balance. You made the harder choice, Michael, the kind that feels like punishment before it becomes peace." He ran a hand over his face. "Peace doesn't pay bills, Grace." "Neither does guilt," she whispered. For a long time, neither spoke. The candle burned out between them, leaving only darkness. The next morning, the mail arrived. More bills, more threats of disconnection. He thumbed through them without interest until one plain white envelope caught his eye. No stamp, no address, no sender. He opened it slowly. Inside was a short note, handwritten in elegant script. "You passed." Attached was a check for $100,000. He blinked, unsure if it was real. "Grace," he called. She hurried in. "What's wrong?" He handed her the note. She read it once, twice, then looked up. "Who sent this?" "There's no name, just, you passed." "At the bottom," she said softly, pointing. He looked closer. In tiny cursive letters were 4 words. "For staying true. Use it well." Michael sank into the chair, his throat thick. "I don't understand. Is this another trick?" Grace smiled faintly. "Maybe it's not a trick. Maybe it's just God. This time without conditions." He never found out who sent it. But that Sunday, He told the church the story. "We refused 10 million that came with a price," he said, holding up the note. "And God sent 1/10 of that freely, because he doesn't need our compromise. He needs our conviction." The church wept. People clapped again, not because of money this time, but because something in them remembered what faith felt like before fear took over. But the blessings didn't stop there. 3 months later, the phone rang again. This time, the voice wasn't calm and faceless. It was cheerful. "Pastor Michael Vale?" "Yes?" "This is Angela from Hope Media Productions. We're producing a documentary called Faith in Modern Times. Someone recommended your story. We'd like to feature your church." Michael almost dropped the phone. "Feature? Why?" "Because people need to see what conviction looks like in real life. No pretense, just raw faith. Would you be interested?" He hesitated. "As long as the story belongs to God, not to me." Angela laughed softly. "Then it'll be perfect." The documentary aired 2 months later. Within days, the church's email inbox overflowed. Donations poured in from all over the world. $5 here, 1,000 there. Letters from strangers who said his story rekindled their faith. A local businessman came to visit the following week. He introduced himself as David Hall, owner of Hall Construction. "Pastor," he said, shaking Michael's hand, "I watched your story with my wife. It moved us. We'd like to repair your roof. No cost." Grace cried, right there in the doorway. Later, a medical charity reached out. "We'd like to open a free clinic in partnership with your church," they said. "You stood for what's right. Let us stand with you." Soon, the once fading churchyard turned into a place of laughter, prayer, and food drives. The same building that used to leak when it rained now stood shining in the sun. One evening, as the workers packed up after finishing the new roof, Grace stood beside Michael watching the sunset. The golden light spilled through the cross window and painted the sanctuary in color. She smiled. "Looks like God found another way to bless us." Michael nodded slowly. "He just wanted to make sure I remembered whose hands the blessings come from." Grace leaned her head against his shoulder. "You think that was the end of the test?" He smiled faintly. "No. Tests don't end. They just change form." That night, Michael wrote a new sermon, one he would never forget. When Sunday came, the church was packed again. Cameras rolled, but he didn't speak for fame. He spoke like a man who had been broken, rebuilt, and finally understood the meaning of surrender. He walked to the pulpit, his Bible under one arm, and began, "There was once a man who thought he had faith until faith cost him something. That man was me." The congregation leaned in. "Faith," he continued, "isn't a coin you trade for comfort. It's a candle you hold when everything else goes dark. I learned that no amount of money, not even $10 million, can buy peace if it means selling your soul." He paused, eyes sweeping the crowd. "Some of you have your own envelopes, not with money, but with choices. Decisions that test who you are when no one is watching. Don't let the world convince you that compromise is wisdom, because sometimes the right decision will make you look foolish until God writes the ending." Grace smiled from the front row. As the service ended, people lined up to thank him, to shake his hand, to whisper, "You gave us hope again." When everyone left, Michael sat alone for a moment, looking around at the rebuilt church, the polished floor, the repaired walls, the glowing lights. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you for the test and for the truth." That evening, He stood outside watching the lights of the town below. He thought of the anonymous voice on the phone, of the faceless donor, of how easily faith could have become a transaction. And he thought of how close he'd come to losing everything that actually mattered. He smiled. "The devil offers contracts," he whispered. "But God offers chances." Then he looked up at the stars, hands folded. "If you ever test me again," he said softly, "make it harder, because now I know who I'm saying yes to." If you're still watching, take a moment to reflect. What would you have done if that envelope came to you? Would you take the money or keep your soul? Tell us in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs this reminder. And remember, not every test is meant to break you. Some are meant to reveal what unshakable faith looks like when it costs everything. A new story drops soon. Stay close, because every parable hides a truth worth finding.